Good afternoon, Steelers Nation. I hope you're all having an amazing day filled with good health, peace, and great news. The preseason is heating up, the excitement around the Pittsburgh Steelers continues to grow, and today we have important updates that every member of the Black and Gold family needs to know. So make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already part of our Steelers community, and turn on notifications so you never miss any breaking news, roster updates, or exclusive Steelers coverage. Now, without wasting any more time, let's dive straight into the biggest headlines and the most important Pittsburgh Steelers news of the day. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. The Steelers may have found two cornerstone players for the future, and what we're seeing at training camp should have every fan paying close attention. While it's still early in camp, there are already clear signs that the organization's last two first-round selections, Harmon and Honachore, are beginning to justify exactly why the front office invested so heavily in them. Their performances haven't just been solid, they've been among the biggest talking points coming out of practice, and that's saying something considering how much talent is on this roster. Let's start with Honachore, because honestly, his development may be moving faster than almost anyone expected. Coming into camp, the biggest expectation surrounding him was that he possessed outstanding athletic traits, but would need plenty of time before becoming ready for meaningful NFL snaps. Instead, what has unfolded during padded practices has been extremely encouraging. His footwork has immediately translated against NFL competition. One of the most impressive sequences came when he mirrored Nick Herbig's explosive speed rush, something that's incredibly difficult for any offensive tackle, let alone a young player still learning the position at this level. It didn't stop there. He also handled attempts from TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Jack Sawyer during different reps throughout camp. Of course, he hasn't won every single battle. TJ Watt managed to buckle him on one rep that likely would have resulted in pressure on the quarterback, but what stood out even more was Honachore's response. Rather than repeating the same mistakes, he adjusted, learned, and looked noticeably better afterward. The biggest concern surrounding him remains power rushers. His hand placement still needs refinement, and there are moments where his hands become too wide, exposing his chest and giving defenders opportunities to attack. But even with those flaws, his natural movement skills continue to stand out. Speed simply isn't beating him very often. His basketball and soccer background show up every time he slides laterally, and his ability to recover when defenders try inside counters has been impressive throughout camp. What may surprise Steelers fans even more is the physical edge he's bringing. There was a running play where he completely opened a lane for Kaleb Johnson, showing that he's not just an athletic pass protector. There's a mean streak in his game that many weren't expecting, and that's exactly the mentality offensive line coaches love to see. The encouraging part is that everyone covering camp agrees he still has tremendous room for growth because his technique isn't even close to being fully polished yet. Even more interesting is what's happening with the offensive tackle rotation. Dylan Cook has held his own, while Broderick Jones has continued working his way back and spending more time with the second unit as he regains strength. Meanwhile, Honachore has steadily received additional reps alongside the first-team offense. That's significant because coaching staffs don't hand out first-team opportunities unless they believe a player is earning them. The fact that he's already rotating more frequently with the starters speaks volumes about how the organization currently views his progress. On the defensive side, Harmon is making just as strong of an impression, although in a completely different way. His power has been impossible to ignore from the moment padded practices began. When he explodes off the ball and gets his hands into an offensive lineman's chest, he immediately drives the pocket backward. During run periods, he consistently disrupted plays, swallowed double teams, and forced offenses to account for where he was lined up before every snap. At one point, it even appeared Aaron Rodgers checked into a runaway from Harmon, a reflection of the respect his presence already commands against the run. Perhaps the most encouraging development is that Harmon himself understands where his game still needs to improve. After practice, he explained that while his power has always been a strength, he's worked hard to expand his pass rush arsenal by adding finesse moves instead of relying solely on brute force. That evolution could completely change his ceiling as an NFL defensive tackle because offensive linemen become far more vulnerable when they can no longer anticipate whether power or finesse is coming next. Observers also noted that Harmon looks leaner than before while appearing even stronger. His long arm move has been effective during one-on-one drills, and he's showing what appears to be a newly developed cross-chop move that's adding another weapon to his repertoire. There are still moments where his get-off isn't as quick as it needs to be, allowing strong interior blocking blockers to slow him down before he can fully establish leverage. But those moments are becoming less frequent, and the flashes are becoming more consistent with each practice. Veteran defensive lineman Sebastian Joseph Day couldn't hide his excitement when discussing the young defensive front. He praised Derek Harmon along with Keeanu Benton and Yahya Black, saying the future is extremely bright if this young group continues developing together. He highlighted their athleticism, technique, strength, and work ethic, emphasizing that all three players possess enormous upside and could become the foundation of Pittsburgh's defensive front for years to come. When you put all of these developments together, it's easy to understand why there's growing optimism around these two first-round picks. Honachore is progressing faster than expected against some of the Steelers' best pass rushers, while Harmon is already showing signs that he can become a dominant force in the middle of the defensive line. If both continue on this trajectory throughout training camp and into the preseason, Pittsburgh may have landed two foundational pieces who could shape both sides of the football for a long time. But here's the question for Steelers Nation. Based on everything happening at training camp so far, which rookie has impressed you more, Maxi Honachore or Derek Harmon? And which one do you believe will make the bigger impact during the upcoming season? Another major storyline developing throughout training camp isn't just about individual players, it's about the identity of the offense itself. For the first time in quite a while, there are visible signs that Pittsburgh is building a passing attack with a completely different philosophy, and both Aaron Rodgers and Pat Freiermuth have explained why that change could reshape the entire offense. One of the biggest adjustments being installed by Mike McCarthy is a much heavier commitment to operating from under center. According to Aaron Rodgers, that isn't simply a cosmetic change. He believes it is the foundation that allows everything else in the offense to function properly. Instead of relying almost exclusively on shotgun formations, the Steelers are emphasizing under center snaps to create more effective play action, improve movement concepts, and make the offense more efficient on first and second down. Rodgers made it clear that many of the league's best offenses aren't dependent on living in shotgun every play, and he believes playing under center creates far more opportunities to stress opposing defenses. That philosophy is already beginning to show itself on the practice field. Observers have noticed a much greater emphasis on attacking the middle of the field, something Steelers fans haven't consistently seen in recent years. Instead of limiting the passing game to screens, checkdowns, or throws outside the numbers, the offense is incorporating crossing routes, dig routes, slants, seam concepts, and quick timing throws designed to get playmakers moving with the football. The goal isn't simply completing passes, it's creating opportunities for receivers to generate yards after the catch. And when discussing who could benefit the most from this approach, one name keeps coming up: DK Metcalf. The coaching staff appears determined to maximize his physical gifts instead of asking him to win only on low percentage vertical throws. The idea is to get the football into his hands while he's already moving through the middle of the field, allowing his size and speed to take over after the catch. Once Metcalf builds momentum, defenders face an almost impossible task trying to bring him down in open space. Rather than asking him to make difficult contested catches every series, this offensive structure is designed to let him become a runner after the reception. But Metcalf isn't the only player benefiting from these concepts. The play-action game is also creating opportunities for Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, Roman Wilson, and several other receivers working across the middle of the field. During red zone work, multiple touchdowns came off play-action concepts, including crossing routes and corner routes that forced defenders to hesitate before reacting. That hesitation is exactly what McCarthy wants his offense to create, because every fraction of a second can become the difference between a completion and an explosive play. Roman Wilson in particular appears to fit naturally within these designs. His speed allows him to separate quickly on crossing routes, something he excelled at in college, and those same strengths are beginning to show during training camp. The offense is finding ways to let him accelerate into open space rather than asking him to constantly beat defenders through physical one-on-one battles at the line of scrimmage. Another important detail that continues surfacing throughout practice is the rhythm Aaron Rodgers is developing with his receivers. Pat Freiermuth explained that the offense has spent considerable time working through quick game concepts, middle field passing designs, and timing routes because that's the style Rodgers prefers. The emphasis has been on refining the details, building chemistry, and making sure everyone reacts the same way to every coverage look. Instead of relying on a small collection of repetitive concepts, the offense is expanding the number of answers available depending on what the defense presents before the snap. That flexibility may become one of Pittsburgh's biggest offensive advantages. Rather than static route combinations where receivers simply run predetermined patterns regardless of coverage, many concepts now include options based on leverage and defensive positioning. Receivers are catching passes while moving, creating more opportunities for yards after the catch instead of immediately being tackled after stationary receptions. Screens remain part of the offense, but they're now functioning as one piece of a much broader system built around movement, timing, and creating explosive plays without forcing Aaron Rodgers to hold the football for extended periods. And that's really the balancing act Mike McCarthy appears determined to solve. Rodgers is entering this stage of his career knowing the ball must come out quickly. The coaching staff understands that protecting the quarterback is essential, but they also recognize that an offense built entirely on short completions won't consistently rank among the NFL's best. That's why the emphasis has shifted toward generating